In the pantheon of horror icons, few figures have carved as deep a psychological wound into the collective unconscious as Leatherface, the chainsaw-wielding, mask-wearing terror of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Born from the twisted imagination of Tobe Hooper and Kim Henkel in 1974, this hulking figure has transcended his humble exploitation film origins to become a symbol of primal fear and family dysfunction. Across nearly 5 decades of sequels, remakes, and reimaginings, Leatherface has maintained his position as one of horror's most enduring and unsettling antagonists. His image, the leather mask stitched from human faces, the roaring chainsaw, the blood-soaked apron, has become shorthand for visceral terror and the collapse of civilized society. What makes Leatherface truly fascinating from a character construction standpoint is how his creators built him as the perfect embodiment of contradictions that tap into our deepest anxieties. He's simultaneously victim and victimizer, child and monster, protector and destroyer of family values. His character anatomy reveals a masterclass in horror design. Every element of his construction, from his masks to his weapons to his childlike behavior, was carefully crafted to create maximum psychological impact while exploring themes of identity, family loyalty, and the thin line between civilization and savagery. This isn't just another slasher villain. It's a complex character architecture that transforms gore into genuine psychological horror. But to understand how this leather-faced giant became horror's most psychologically complex killer, we must first examine the twisted family dynamics and childhood trauma that forged his monstrous identity. Section 1. Origin and Backstory. Leatherface's origins represent character anatomy operating in reverse. Instead of a traditional villain's empowering backstory, his creators constructed a foundation built on powerlessness, mental disability, and familial abuse that transforms him into a weapon wielded by others. The original 1974 film reveals Leatherface as the physically strongest but mentally weakest member of the cannibalistic Sawyer family, a man-child whose leather masks serve as both protection and prison. This anatomical choice creates a killer who murders not from malice, but from fear, confusion, and desperate need for family approval. The genius lies in how this origin makes the audience simultaneously terrified of and sympathetic to the character. He's a victim who creates victims, a monster manufactured by monstrous circumstances. The structural brilliance of Leatherface's backstory becomes apparent when examining how it functions as social commentary disguised as exploitation horror. His creators engineered a character whose mental disability and family dysfunction reflect real anxieties about rural poverty, social isolation, and the breakdown of traditional family structures in 1970s America. Unlike other horror villains, who choose evil, Leatherface's character anatomy suggests he never had a choice. His violence stems from learned behavior, desperation to please his family, and genuine terror of the outside world. This construction creates a character who embodies the horror of circumstances beyond one's control, making him both monster and victim of his environment. The 2003 remake and its 2006 prequel, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning showcase how this origin translates across different interpretations while maintaining the character's core anatomy. R. Lee Ermey's Sheriff Hoyt and the expanded Hewitt family backstory demonstrate how Leatherface functions as the physical manifestation of generational trauma and abuse. These films reveal how his masks aren't just disguises, but desperate attempts to construct identity from the faces of others. A man so broken he can only exist by literally wearing the skin of his victims. The anatomical sophistication here lies in a character whose very construction forces audiences to confront uncomfortable questions about nature versus nurture, victim versus victimizer. This tragic foundation creates the perfect platform for abilities that will transform desperate survival instincts into instruments of unimaginable terror. Section 2. Abilities and True Nature. Leatherface's abilities function as brilliant character anatomy because they stem from practical necessity rather than supernatural power, grounding his horror in uncomfortable reality. His signature chainsaw isn't a weapon of choice, but a tool repurposed from his family's work in the meat industry. A detail that transforms industrial equipment into an extension of his fractured psyche. His incredible physical strength serves not as empowerment, but as another burden, making him the family's designated enforcer while keeping him dependent on their approval. The anatomical genius lies in how his powers create more problems than they solve. Every act of violence terrifies him as much as his victims. Every kill drives him deeper into psychological breakdown. Every moment of violence reinforces his role as the family's sacrificial lamb. The construction of his mask-wearing behavior reveals sophisticated psychological architecture that operates on multiple narrative levels. Each mask represents a different aspect of his shattered personality: the pretty woman mask for socializing, the old lady mask for cooking, the raw leather mask for killing. This isn't just a gimmick, it's character anatomy that explores themes of identity, self-worth, and the masks we all wear to navigate social situations. His inability to function without these literal faces speaks to deeper questions about authenticity and self-perception. The horror comes not just from the grotesque appearance, but from recognizing the desperate human need for identity that drives this macabre ritual. Across different film interpretations, Leatherface's abilities consistently serve to highlight his childlike mentality, trapped in a monster's body. In the 2017 film Leatherface, his origin story shows how violence became his only language for communication and survival. His chainsaw dancing in the original film reveals a character who finds joy in destruction while remaining terrified of his own actions. His superhuman strength becomes a curse that makes him too dangerous for normal society, but too simple to escape his family's control. The anatomical sophistication here lies in abilities that isolate rather than empower, creating a character whose every strength becomes a weakness, whose every survival skill deepens his dependence on the very people who exploit him. But these terrifying abilities only scratch the surface of a character whose psychological complexity transforms him from simple slasher villain into a walking meditation on identity, family, and the nature of evil itself. Section 3. Complexity and Philosophy. Leatherface's character anatomy reaches its most sophisticated expression in how his construction generates profound questions about the nature of evil, responsibility, and moral agency. His childlike behavior and mental disability create a character who commits horrific acts while remaining fundamentally innocent of their moral implications. This anatomical choice forces audiences to confront uncomfortable questions about culpability. Can someone be evil if they lack the mental capacity to understand good and evil? The philosophical complexity lies in how his creators engineered a character who simultaneously embodies pure horror and pure victimhood, making traditional moral categories inadequate for understanding his actions. The architectural genius of Leatherface becomes most apparent in how different interpretations explore his relationship with family loyalty and identity. His desperate need for approval from his abusive family reveals how his character construction explores themes of codependency, learned helplessness, and the ways trauma shapes behavior across generations. The horror comes not just from his actions, but from recognizing the twisted love that motivates them. He kills to protect his family, wears faces to feel human, follows orders to maintain the only relationships he's ever known. This creates a character whose evil actions stem from recognizably human emotions, making him both monster and mirror for audiences' own family dynamics and psychological needs. The most disturbing aspect of Leatherface's character anatomy lies in how his construction reveals the thin line between victim and victimizer, between protecting family and destroying humanity. His leather masks become metaphors for how we all construct identity from external sources, how we all hide our true faces behind socially acceptable personas. His chainsaw represents the destructive power of those who are used as weapons by others, the violence that emerges when the powerless are given tools of power. The question that haunts every Leatherface story isn't whether he's a monster, but whether any of us, placed in his circumstances, would become monsters too. In the end, we must ask, did Tobe Hooper and Kim Henkel create Leatherface as horror's ultimate villain, or as a tragic reminder that monsters are made, not born? And does the true terror of his character lie in recognizing that the capacity for such monstrousness exists within the broken dynamics of any family?